Warriors, I am so honored to present to you our board member, Susie Pfeiffer. Susie is the vice president of Lynn's Warriors. Susie Pfeiffer is based in the Tampa Bay area in Florida, and we welcome Susie to the Warriors. Welcome, Susie Pfeiffer.
Thank you for having me.
I wanted to showcase and share with our Warrior audience all that you do, because what you do is the most important. Your entire career has been spent in the healthcare industry. So share with us today exactly what you're doing and your connection to human trafficking.
Well, I am a psychiatric registered nurse, and I am currently working in a pediatric unit or a child adolescent unit where we have kids from ages 4 to 17 that come in for all kinds of various mental health issues. And what I find is that we have had several children that have been involved with human trafficking. Normally, how we get them is they will be placed under an involuntary hold for some concern of their safety.
Mm-hmm.
And so they will be brought in by the police, and they are assessed by our psychiatrists, and they're seen by our therapists and our treatment team. And they will go ahead and treat them. But what the interesting thing is, or sticky part of this, is that when we try to do discharge planning, we don't know where they're going. We don't know where they are because they are in secured facilities, or secured group homes. So we have to do what we can and try to provide what we can as much as possible, and then have to turn it over to these people. It's difficult with these kids because they are far more advanced emotionally, sexually, than our other children. So you have to really look closely at how what their behaviors are. For example, I had a young lady yesterday who was brought to us. She had been running away from the secured group home, and she was picked up by police and made the statement she wanted to kill herself, so she was brought to us. So while she was there, she didn't have any clothing of her own that was appropriate for the unit, so all we could do was give her a patient gown to wear. And while she was wearing this gown, the gown was up very, high on her leg, and sitting in very promiscuous positions and so forth. And when you try to give redirection, they are leap years ahead
Very
of
tough.
what our have. So her comment to us was, I have sex with men all the time, and this is nothing. I mean, I don't care if anybody sees, my private area. Who cares? So it's sad. It's challenging. It's you worry. I mean, I go home at night and I wonder, how are these children ever going to make this outside of here? Because oddly enough, even though in their secured places, most of them run. Most of them hate being locked up. Most of them.
But how, Susie? How are they running from a secure facility? Do we know?
Yeah, I can't figure that one out, but it is, and because we don't know where these facilities are, I can't go to somebody and ask them. If I ever have an opportunity to get some kind of lead on where I might be able to speak to somebody about these, I want to ask those questions, because I am baffled if they're in a secured lockup, because they're taken there by, I don't know if it's law enforcement or if it's child protective services or whatever. 9 times out of 10, I would suspect it's probably law enforcement, because they are usually involved with keeping that witness secure, and because there's some kind of charge going or legal proceeding going on. So I'm not sure.
Interesting, because it just does, the whole scenario does not seem right to me, that once they're out of your sight, there's no chain of command of follow-up, because we know and studies show that what we consider here at the Warriors, these children to be victims, not even a child prostitute. We believe that children cannot consent, so they cannot even be a prostitute. We view them as victims. that we know from the studies that the pimps and traffickers get these kids to do the crimes, whether it's drugs, whether it's getting other children or teens involved in trafficking, and they get the kids, involved to such an extent that law enforcement arrests the children. And I just finished reading an entire study about our juvenile justice system and how we are the highest country in the world putting children in these adult jails and prisons. So it seems so baffling to me that once they're out of your immediate, there is no chain follow-up study. And again, how are they getting away from these secure facilities? Does it mean the facility is, I'm not saying they are, I'm just suggesting perhaps, are they complicit? Is law enforcement complicit? How are they getting away? Because we also know from studies that most of them just go back to the pimp, the trafficker, the life they know. They're actually brainwashed. This young woman sounds like that you were dealing with yesterday, brainwashed. This is a typical story I hear a lot. That's all they know, how to act provocative,
Mm-hmm.
So it's actually incredibly sad, and that's why we formed Lynn's Warriors, and I'm so happy you're on board with Lynn's Warriors, because we want to intervene, and we want to educate, and we want to engage and empower the adults to deal with the children, and also to empower the children. Because once they get to the point of this young lady, it's very tough. It's not somebody is saved or they're giving some treatment and it's done. This is really, I work with and speak with a lot of survivors, a lifelong process that they really do not get over. So a child at this point, we've got to get in there before they even get to this point and intervene. So have you noticed anything? How did a COVID affect your business? Did you notice anything with kids? Did it shut it down, or did you see more?
Oh, no. The exact opposite.
Mm-hmm.
We have, usually we're kind of cyclical when school is out for summer mostly. Christmas break, the usual holidays and stuff where kids have time away from school. We were full the entire time. COVID, a lot of kids became suicidal, which at first we were thinking, this is ridiculous. Why? But as time went on, we came to realize that their socialization was cut off. So they could not see their peers. They were relying more on social media, and it was just, they had a terrible time with this, more so than we ever imagined. So now we're coming up on summer. The restrictions are releasing now. So little by little, we will, start to see whether or not it's going to change. Now that we're in Florida, and Florida has always been throughout COVID fairly reasonable with the restriction. And so now, they're opening up theme parks, and you can go to stores and so forth without masks. Very few places now have it where it's a mandate you wear a mask. So now that everybody's out of school, we'll see how different all of this is, and where we're going to go as far as kids really showing up, and are things really going to get back to normal? I have no idea.
I don't like that word normal. I believe there's no such thing as normal, and I also. The thing during COVID, the most disturbing, is that the face of human trafficking, sexual exploitation, truly has become online. The number one predator has become the internet, which all the kids, as you mentioned, being homeschooled or just being at home because of lockdowns and things like that. And I'm in New York City, and Florida was far more liberal than we were truly in lockdown here. Spending all their time, studies are showing up to 12, 14 hours a day online, and it has become an addiction, and it has become, how many likes can I get? And I want to connect you, Susie Pfeiffer, with my good friend Jan Edwards in Orlando, Florida. I was on her presentation working with her this morning. She has a wonderful foundation, Paving the Way, out of Orlando, and it's all about digital safety, teen tech talk, parent tech talk, ways again to intervene so we don't have that situation we had with this young woman that you had to deal with yesterday. Because the internet we have to focus on that. It's never going back. The genie's out of the bottle, the addiction. And certainly when we see all of our adults acting the way, when I see grown women on the internet doing their TikTok dancing and stripping off their clothes, and this is what our children are seeing. I mean, that's another discussion. The kids are vulnerable. They're seeing vulnerable adults, which they replicate. Even the toughest teens might deny it, but they replicate adult behavior. If they're seeing that, they're doing that. So I'm very interested. The studies are starting in the last couple of weeks to leak out what happened during COVID. Because in New York, all of the there are only 2 safe houses in New York. Unbelievable, isn't that, New York City? I mean, that's incredible. And because of the lockdown, the actual, remember, we're in much more of a lockdown here over the last year than Florida ever was. They couldn't even process or take people in. So these people are stuck in the homes. They're stuck with the pimps and traffickers and, the domestic violence. It all goes hand in hand, all of that. And
Exactly.
again, it was all being done on the internet. It was being done with taking of the pictures, and then uploading them, sending them, which the other person would then upload to a porn site to make money. It's all about money. In the meantime, I don't understand why parents and trusted adults aren't out in the streets screaming for our children. Because this sexual exploitation and trafficking, I'm told, some studies say it's the number 2 crime. Law enforcement tells me it has surpassed the drug trade and is truly the number 1 crime. So, and on top of it, we have the border issue, which nobody's talking about. All of these children are coming in, and we're not even taking care of our own children. It's a complete mess, and nobody in government is getting anything done. There's so much red tape and weaponization, so it's up to us to be the warriors. And for somebody like you, Susie Pfeiffer, Vice President of Lynn's Warriors, on the front lines to keep us educated and to help with all of this. What do you think, how do your, how should I phrase this? Do your peers, do you talk about all of this kind of thing? Or do you think people shy away because it's so ugly and dark, this whole subject matter? Do you think people are kind of numb? You know what I mean? And push it aside? Because I find a lot of people don't want to talk about this. And we need to have open and real, these are hard conversations to have about kids, communication, or else we're not going to be able to intervene and stop any of this. What do you think? What's your opinion working in healthcare?
I believe that there are many parents out there that are so disengaged from their children, what they're doing. You hand a kid a phone and there's your entertainment. And parents don't often take the time to put the blocks that you can put on things, or look at what they're looking at. Open their phones. Take a really good look at what's in there. Getting passwords, changing passwords. The thing that haunts me all the time is that these children don't understand that if you send a picture to somebody, whatever it is, breast, a buttocks, vagina, penis, whatever it is, if you are sending that, you are sending pornography.
Yes.
They don't realize that that's illegal. I mean, we know that, but, well, I say, we know. Not everybody knows that, crazily enough.
Most don't know that. Most don't know that.
So, I mean, it's become the norm. So nobody really does think it's well, everybody does it, so, and I'm not in jail, so who cares? But these children I cringe when we talk about these kids so readily talk about, well, I was talking to somebody, they swear whatever's on the internet is real.
Yes.
So they think that they're not even looking at pictures, they're just a text. They're supposed to figure out that that's really what they're talking to is a 40-year-old man pedophile, that type of thing, or even women can do this as well. They believe that they think they're talking to, a minor. So the conversation starts out, hey, how you doing? Whatever, what do you like? And then it gets a little deeper, and it's, oh, you're so cute. Send me a picture, whatever. You're so cute. All the compliments come.
Yes.
They just reel them in. Maybe they might even send them a little present or something,
Exactly.
and then
It's called grooming, Susie. They're grooming them.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And then here you go. They're sending these pictures, and they're even, to my horror, inviting these people. Come to my house. Come to my house. My parents aren't home, usually between this time. So come by. Come over. We'll go out. Whatever. And we've had people that have had children that have had grown-ups show up at their house. And parents were taken aback. But then, sadly enough, some of them weren't taken aback, and it was no big deal. So it's really... It's crazy that how much parents are disengaged, how the children they talk about things that we never talked about as kids. I mean, think back when we were kids. We didn't have cell phones.
But that's the difference. We didn't have the internet. We weren't open to any of this.
That was it. If you wanted to talk to somebody, you either talked to them face to face, maybe you called them on the phone, or you wrote a note. That was it. But the note would get face to face. We played all day. Kids would get up in the morning, you eat breakfast, go out, play, come back home for lunch, go back out and play, come home for dinner. We didn't socialize. You actually, work with kids. Now, people don't even know how to talk to one another.
But it's the internet. I'm telling you, it's the internet. The studies show since 1996, escalating every single year, how the internet has replaced everything. And again, the adults as well, but we're talking about children, have grown up, born into this world of internet. The millennials, as we always speak about, they're born into the internet. That's their whole world, what goes on with the internet. But again, I see so many parents, like you said, not giving enough attention to this. A study is 62% don't know anything their children are doing on any of their devices. If it's 62%, I'm going to say to you it's 82%, because human trafficking, all of these things are underreported. So the only thing at Lynn's Warriors, along with you and our other board members and our advisory council, we need to educate and talk about these issues and talk about how to have those comfortable conversations, because that's the other thing I always get. We've become, in my opinion, it's such a normalization of this sexualization of everything. Yet they don't want to talk about this, their own children. It could be at their kitchen table with their phone. It could be, in the kid's bedroom. There have to be some safeguards. It sounds so simple, communication. That's my block. They're like, I don't want to talk about that. Sure, but you're posting pictures as the mother, half dressed on a site like OnlyFans. So we have to come together, and we have to just keep pushing through and educate. And you certainly, I can't thank you enough for joining the board of the Warriors and for helping me. And your state of Florida is actually doing wonderful work with human trafficking. You have the United States Institute Against Human Trafficking, which is one of our partners at Lynn's Warriors, out of Tampa. And you have Attorney General Ashley Moody doing some groundbreaking things with human trafficking. Because also, Florida also started, with sports events that come into town. That's a big thing for trafficking. Of course, with COVID, when nobody was around, it was a different story. But now that we're opening up and have more in-person events, we need to be aware of any time there's a major, a Super Bowl or any of those kind of big sports things, we've got to that's a big moneymaker, with trafficking. We've got to get a handle on that. So Florida started a program, wonderful education, putting signs, in all the bus stops. Everybody should have that across the country. Bus stops, restrooms, every airport should have signs. Florida started that. Why don't all the other states have it? Some do, but why do we have to fight so hard to protect our precious children? You know, I find this just, I don't know. I just know that we as the warriors are going to confront this and teach people, you know, onward and upward. What is your hope, Susie Pfeiffer, for the future? Like, what are you thinking about as far as healthcare and children? What are your hopes for all of that?
My hope is that we, as a country, as caring human beings, really take a stand on being more interested in our youth, in our kids, and safety, and stop being so afraid of not addressing maybe uncomfortable things, making it more common. We spend more time not talking about things than we should. And I worry because kids are growing up way too fast, and they don't understand a lot of this. They really don't. You'd be surprised, well, maybe not, but it's surprising how many kids talk about sex, and they talk about all these different things, and they really, if you get them one-to-one, they have no clue what they're talking about. They don't understand, the mechanics of you can have sex unprotected, and it only takes one time. Nobody's having that conversation anymore. That used to be the big thing, First of all, you can get pregnant on the first time you have sex. That was the big thing, don't have sex. And then it was with AIDS and so forth, protection and being safe. But none of this is, sending pictures to the world is, of your breasts and so forth. It's nothing. So it's more of being accountable and taking more care of yourself and keeping, just being safe about what you do. It's scary because I think this is our future. This is, so if they don't get it, then they're going to then turn around and do the same with their children, and it's just going to get worse and worse and worse.
Escalate and escalate.
Absolutely. And children, there's something to be said for youth. I always tell these kids, you only have, if you live to be 85, only 17 of those years, you're really a kid. That's it. And all of that other time is an adult. This is a time where it should be the easiest for you. Mm-hmm. It should be your job right now is to go to school, follow with your parents, do your chores and whatever you need to do to be within your family, in your home. You have the rest of your life to do whatever you want to do, but, get an education. Be smart about the choices that you make. Think about what you want to do in the future and try to go for those goals. And it's hard to tell a kid, stop worrying about what everybody else thinks, but
that's the tough one. Yeah.
But, to be, we need to help children have a better self-esteem. Their identity is based on how many likes they have by people they have no idea. And so I think really grounding kids more and helping them to have a better sense of self-worth. And that it's okay that, you're not the most popular, or you're not the tallest or the prettiest or the best in sports or whatever, but that's okay. You can still be a good person with who you are and what you have. And I think we've lost that. So healthcare, I hope that we don't have a lot of good services, I have to say. For Florida, we really don't. But I'm sure we're not the only state that has that issue. But there needs to be more mental health programs and stuff for kids. Because there isn't enough. So if they come into the hospital and they do have bipolar disorder, or there's a lot of conduct disorders that we deal with, and those guys are pretty dangerous because they're usually very violent. But there's not a lot of care afterwards. So you unleash these people that are not healthy, and when their self-esteems are already, frazzled, and then you have mental health issues on top of that, and your coping skills stink, And, most of these kids, how they're coping with stuff is they're either cutting themselves, that's a big thing too, cutting themselves, or they are violent, either going after people or destroying property or whatever. They're using drugs or alcohol or whatever. And a lot of these kids, they do not get that, you can use one time and that one time could kill you. They don't understand addiction or anything like that. Or, they're putting stuff out in the cyber world.
Yes.
And they're, oh, I want to hurt myself. I want to kill myself. And then you have people on the other end who would just enjoy telling them, well, go ahead.
Well, they do. There's been.
And so, these are things that we need better ways to help these kids cope, and make it a little more normal to not be involved with this. Instead of pushing the social media and all that stuff, kind of making popularity more based on your well-being instead of all this other nonsense. Yeah. I don't know how we can do that, but that would be my dream, to actually do it.
Well, my dream would be that we don't have to have a Lynn's Warriors, and we don't have to talk about any of this, and that truly is my dream. But, the goal of Lynn's Warriors is to help one child or parent or trusted family member, one person a day. Because if you look at the big picture, it's too overwhelming. And we have to remember that studies show, the child's brain doesn't really develop till they're 25 to 28 years old. They don't have that mechanism you talked about to make some sound decisions about. People always forget that. And also, I was talking this week on my radio program, and I talk about it all the time, every week, 1 in 4 children in the last year we know about actively, when I say children, this is now, it has changed, ages pre-K, which was unheard of, up until 18, actively talk about suicide or self-harm. That's 25% we know about. There was a wonderful article I recommended that teachers were saying once a month in pre-K, a child will say to them, I want to kill myself. I'm going to cut myself. In pre-K, that could be 3, 4, or maybe 5 in some states. And the teacher will say, well, what do you mean you want to? And they don't even know what that really means, I want to kill myself. But they just say things like, and they're hearing it somewhere, I want to kill myself. I don't like the pain. I don't like you're making me do that assignment. And where are 3, 4, and 5-year-olds learning this terminology? So again, everything for the Warriors has to begin. We have to start in the home. We have to educate and think of it, one child or person at a time. And we truly have to talk about the internet. And that's what we're going to do, because Susie Pfeiffer, the internet is not going away. It's here to stay. I mean, I'm fighting big tech in New York City, in New York State, and also in Washington, D.C., and nobody's doing anything, and that's the truth. And I'll also share with you, I had, with one of my elected council members, a Zoom on Thursday, and she kept changing the time, but I was determined to get it done this week before the holiday. And I said, okay, I'll do it late in the day, whatever you want. I literally, and this is in my neighborhood, because again, the Warriors, we want to focus at home in our community. And this woman prides herself on public outreach in the community, the 10 blocks around me here. Now that we're opening up in New York, I wanted to get into some of the public housing projects. We've got a college up the street, a library down the street. Start doing little talks. If 5 people show up, great. If 25 show up, better. Just to start the community. Okay, again, following along, it could be that one person or child gets educated or helped that day. We know with elected officials, you usually have a 15-minute block to do your elevator pitch and get your story out and what do you want. I've also had a meeting in the past with this woman, so she knows who I am, a couple of years ago. And she literally, in the computer screen, I didn't even get to the 5-minute mark, went like this and put her hand like up to cover my face.
Gosh.
When I got to the point that said, I want to collaborate with you within our community to talk to people, to talk to the residents about digital safety, internet safety, human trafficking. The hand went in my face. She started shaking her head no, and she said, I can't talk to you anymore, and she disconnected the Zoom. So if these are our elected officials who are supposed to work for us, that's just an example of this is not on their radar. They do not care. It is up to us to all become warriors in our own homes and communities. And I am so thrilled you are on board with me, and we are going to do wonderful things and help people. And warriors, you can learn more about Susie. Go to the website, lynswarriors.org. Go to our board and read all about Susie's fabulous career. And I want to thank you, Susie, for being on the front lines and for dealing with hands-on. I know how difficult it is to deal with these children. People don't realize that. You mentioned the violence. You mentioned they could be on drugs, just their attitudes. We're trying to help them, and they're so conditioned, like almost animals. It's the saddest thing. So I want to thank you. We all thank you for doing, for having this dedication and commitment and doing what I consider to be the hardest job in the world. Thank you, Susie Pfeiffer.
Thank you for having me. I
You're
appreciate
welcome. Take good care. We'll talk soon.
it. Thank you.